welcome to Classics Confidential, and I'm here talking to Helen Eastman and Alex Silverman, who are the director and the composer, composer for the 2010 Cambridge Greek play, the Agamemnon, which is happening, is it October the 13th to the 16th,
yes.
So in a couple of weeks' time, and you've been rehearsing like mad all summer, I imagine.
Well, really.
Yeah.
We were appointed about a year ago, and we cast the performers back in February, and did some initial workshopping with them in March,
okay.
Just to explore what the style of production might be, what it might sound like, what the movement style might be, and so we explored it back then. Then we gave everyone a big long gap, which was theoretically for learning Greek. And
writing
then,
music.
Wow. Writing music, yeah. I'm not sure who learned less Greek or who wrote less music in that time. But then we all recreated.
You already knew loads of Greek. Yeah, I should say that these are both classes. You both got undergraduate degrees in classics, classics and English in your case, Helen.
Yeah,
is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the Greek was already in the bag.
Clearly.
It was a bit rusty, I think.
It's fair to say I learnt my Greek very quickly here, and I forgot it quite rapidly also. I don't know if you found a similar experience.
Yeah.
Did you start from scratch?
I started from scratch.
I started from scratch, and it took me 3 years. It took us about a year to learn Greek, 6 months to learn Greek to quite a passable standard, about 2 years to get used to working with it, and about 6 months after graduating to forget the whole lot. So starting again was quite a
You
baptism.
really need to keep up with it, don't you?
You do. Yes, 10 years, or 11, 9 years, however long it is.
Is that how long
it's
been?
Quite a long time, isn't it?
I feel really old now.
I thought it would just all come flooding back, and then I remembered that I probably never could read Aeschylean choruses in the first place. So the idea that I was somehow going to suddenly be able to do it fluently, 10, 15 years later, was completely
no, that's true. I'm much more conversant with Aeschylean chorus than I ever was.
I reckon my Greek is better now, possibly, than it
definitely.
ever was.
I think it probably is.
But it was
with a much smaller vocabulary, but
yes, exactly, with a very specific vocabulary. Yeah. But it's an amazing way to really learn a language, is to learn it to be able to do something really exciting and theatrical with it. And I think you therefore you pick up stuff much faster than you realise you're doing it, because you're just using it all day, every day in the rehearsal room. So to some extent, it's a really active, aesthetic way of learning it. So it's a completely different experience to sitting down and reading it, I think. And I think with the only one of the 10, 11 people we originally cast in this, now 2 of the whole cast are classicists.
Oh, right.
So interestingly, everyone
some have a smattering.
Some have a smattering. They've done a bit from A level or from theology or something. But basically, it's not a company of classicists. So there's been quite an exciting thing of them actually all meeting the language for the first time and learning it, getting to know it. And I think they've all gone through a phase of getting absolutely up against a brick wall and going, I hate Greek. I can't. This is overwhelming. And then they all come out the other side and go, this is fantastic.
And how do you do it practically? Do you write it out phonetically, or did they learn these scripts?
They've done a mixture, because people have different learning styles. So some people have found it easier to learn it orally, and Anthony Bowen and James Diggle made a recording of the whole play, an oral recording, which they've all got, and some of them have learnt it orally. Yeah. Some of them have learnt it off by learning the Greek letters and learning it off Greek, and some of them have learnt it off a transliteration, transliterated into English letters. We found that even if they've learnt it orally and can then just sort of churn out the Greek, that doesn't actually allow you to perform it, because you can't think through the thoughts fast enough. You have to know what every word means. So even if they've got an oral and a muscular memory of being able to say the lines, we then have to go through it much, much more slowly, where we literally go through every word and its meaning, so they can then think through the sense of it and think grammatically in the sentence structure of the Greek. Because if you've got a big sentence that arrives at the noun or at the verb right at the end of the sentence, then it's no use to just know what the sentence means. You actually have to know it word by word, because as an actor or as a performer, it may be that the idea of the last word doesn't actually come until halfway through the sentence, and that's why it's written like that. So there's a suspense. And if all you know is what the general meaning of the whole sentence is, you can't actually play the pace of the thoughts. So particularly Clytemnestra, who it's one, if not the biggest role in Greek tragedy, and she's a non-classicist, so she's learnt the Greek from scratch, and it's the most extraordinary achievement, because she's now so adept with it that she literally is working through what every word means, and it's that sort of transformation from total non-comprehension to complete inhabiting of a language is absolutely extraordinary to watch. That's been
so
incredibly
impressive.
It's been a real, the combination of approaches as well has been quite it's been a learning process for us in terms of having to work with essentially a group that's working at 3 different speeds quite a lot of the time. We've got some people who can pick it up and tell us exactly where the verb is. We've got
better than we can, yeah.
Yeah, and we've got some, well yes, they are quite often telling us where the verb is in the sentence. We've got some people for whom it is literally swimming on the page, and our process is always one of clarifying. It's always about trying to tell the audience what's there and what's important of what's there, because there's a huge volume of it. It's quite a big play.
Why did you choose the Agamemnon?
A variety of reasons, I think. I think one is, for a lot of people, it's a sort of like a foundation text. It's a way into Greek tragedy, and it hasn't been done as a Cambridge Greek play for quite some time. And I was really excited by the volume of chorus in it, and the Aeschylean choruses. Chorus is kind of what I do and what I'm interested in, and so a play with an enormous role for the chorus was really, really appealing. I think there's a bit of me that it's often approached as a very masculine play, and I was quite interested in. I had opinions on Clytemnestra and Cassandra, which I hadn't seen expressed in a production before. So there's a bit of me wanting to sort of come at that play from my own aesthetic or my own emotional reading of it. I think it's also quite interesting as a standalone play, and what that is and how that works and how it does or doesn't work without the trilogy, and that hasn't been seen on stage for quite a long time. So a mixture of all of those things, really. Also, I think it's a really strong, iconic visual piece in terms of it's got a very strong, basic through-line story in it, which if you're directing it in another language, you need to be incredibly visually clear with the story that you're telling. It needs to be about the progress of visual images on the stage, and it has really strong iconography. So there is a woman standing at the door of a palace, and that's an extraordinary thing. You know, she's guarding the door, and a series of people in red carpet scene. It's incredibly visual play, and if you're working with a later play, a Euripides play or something, most of the joy in that is in the ironies and the subtleties of language and of disguise often, and that can be quite hard to, not impossible, but to work through a language barrier. But what the Agamemnon is it's very, it's extremely clear and sort of clean in its dramaturgy, and that kind of appealed to me, that if we were going to tell the story in a very visual way and working across sort of language barrier to the audience, then it seemed to me that as a play it gave us all those things to be able to do something incredibly visually dramatic. Does that make sense?
Definitely, and